Good evening, folks, and welcome to another week of Paranormal Podcasts live stream. Bit of a faux pas on my behalf. We were just all yakking away there, and I hadn't clicked go live. And Tash said to me, "Will you click go live?" And I went, "Yeah, sure, I'll click it." Yeah, sure, I will, Tash. So apologies for a few minutes late. Completely my fault. How was your ladies' week?
Busy. I got my voice back, kind of.
Yay!
Right.
Barb, what about you?
Mine was really busy as well. I think we're actually on holiday at the moment, but it's like I'm busier when I'm on holiday. There's just so much more to do. It's just crazy.
That's an oxymoron, isn't
it? I know. But no, not so much enjoying the holiday weather, but yeah, it's nice just to kick back and do different stuff rather than running a business.
Well, I just had a crazy week and forgot to do all sorts of things like advertise the live, and we said last week we weren't doing a live, but on Wednesday night, Barbara remembered that she had a surprise birthday party she had to attend on Thursday night, which is when we do our pre-records. So hence why we're live this evening. All right.
So it was a real surprise party.
It was a real surprise.
Everyone was surprised.
Now, we got any paranormal news? I don't got none.
There's nothing happening. There's no news in the paranormal world at the moment.
Well, you know what they say, no news is good news, right?
Either that or we could just go out and make some news.
Oh, I don't know about that, Barb. We might make some infamous news.
Yeah.
So our topic this evening is doppelgangers. So what we're going to discuss is there's two different types of doppelgangers. There's those people that we get told that look like us, or that we see that look identical to us or really like us. And then there's the paranormal kind of doppelgangers. So what we're concerning ourselves with this evening is the paranormal kind of doppelgangers. So the word doppelganger, there's been a couple of different translations around, but traditionally it's a German word which literally translates to double walker.
Or double goer.
Or I've seen it responded as double goer. It's considered to be an apparition of a living person. And there's been tales of this around, since the 17th century. There's some earlier, but they're very dubious. So in English and German folklore, Tash.
So doppelgangers are usually considered a bad omen, and supposedly if you see your doppelganger or an apparition of yourself, that usually means impending doom of some sort.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. And that's both in English and German folklore. They were considered to be bad luck omens and meant death would follow, or that at the very least misfortune would befall the one who had seen their own doppelganger. However, modern case files don't suggest that, if they're anything to go by. But there is folklore surrounding the fact that you should never interact or attempt to interact in any way or form with your doppelganger. I think that there's a few ancient case files, and we'll touch on those a little bit later on. But I think there's a what's the word I'm looking for? A very easily trap that's fallen into when we talk about doppelgangers. And there is a thing called doppelgangers, and there's another thing called bilocation. And the two are very, very different, but they can get confused very, very easily. So I just, before we get into talking about other bits and pieces, I just wanted to go over briefly what the difference is between the two. So,
So is the other one, is it's sort of like astral travel?
no,
You might be in one place
no,
and
no.
then also in another place at the same time.
Yes, but astral travel is your astral body. So unless people can see astral beings or astral bodies, then they don't see your they don't see you as a bilocator. A bilocator is something completely different where people see you very solidly, like I'm looking at you ladies right now type of thing, in two places at the same time. So a doppelganger refers to a person that looks remarkably like a living person. So it's a double of a living person, not only just in looks, but also in mannerisms. So it could be how they walk, how they talk, how they dress, how they act. It's much more than just discovering somebody's face who looks like yours, that today's mainstream media presents doppelgangers as. It's thought to be a paranormal duplicate of a living person. So sometimes doppelgangers won't be seen by the person themselves, but they will manifest to others around them.
But they can be seen by the person themselves, though.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely can be. Yep. But they sometimes won't be. As I said, I'm not saying they always won't be. I'm saying they sometimes won't be. They'll be seen by other people, such as the case of in 1845 of Emily Sagi, where her students used to see her in the classroom, and then they'd look outside in the gardens and they would see her in the gardens mimicking exactly what she was doing in the classroom whilst teaching them. But she actually never saw her doppelganger herself. But as Tash just said, some of the reports come through as, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more depth, we're just giving you a bit of background information at the moment, that doppelgangers are believed by some to be evil, as a lot of reports claim that when a doppelganger presents itself, there's a feeling of oppressiveness or a sense of evil or dread that accompanies them. Other people just exclaim an overwhelming shock at seeing a copy of themselves or a copy of another, such as a case that I read about where a woman was lying in bed and her husband was still downstairs, and she saw him walk past the bedroom door because she had the bedroom door open and the light was on in the hallway. She saw him walk past and she yelled out to him and he didn't answer, so she got up and he wasn't in the hallway. So she yelled to him again and he responded to her from downstairs. So she didn't feel anything in that instance. She just thought it was weird that he hadn't responded to her. So she yelled for him again. So
your video is frozen.
That happened the other week as well. So just don't worry about it.
We've all done it tonight, I've noticed. Tracy, I actually have an example of doppelganger activity in our own family. My niece used to go to bed at night as a child, 7 or 8 years old, would sometimes go to bed at night and then wake up in the morning and tell my sister that her grandmother had been in her bedroom last night. And how she described it was that, and of course her grandmother lived in a different city, but how she would describe it was that she would hear wind and then she would wake up, she would hear wind and then see her grandmother in the room. So, I'm not 100% sure whether that would actually come under doppelganger or whether it was actually my mother astral traveling, as you talked about before, Tash. Yeah, my mother insisted that she hadn't been there, of course, and so yeah, I do think it was probably her doppelganger visiting with her granddaughter. So that's an example that I have of it anyway within my own family.
I've had an example as well. I was on an investigation at an Oddfellows Lodge, what used to be an Oddfellows Lodge, and I went to the toilet by myself, which is in a different part of the building. It's now a theatre, and one of the team members says, "Oh, I thought I saw you just walk into the theatre," and I'm like, "No, I've been in the toilet. I went to the bathroom, which is downstairs underneath the theatre," and this person was adamant that it was me walking into the theatre, like the footsteps and everything.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, cool.
Also,
I think that was my first reaction after saying, "No, wasn't me."
Also, like auditory doppelgangers, if there is such a thing where people hear the voice of someone that they
mimics.
know.
They're commonly referred to as mimics, yeah.
Yeah,
I've had that too.
That is a type. That's so right. But that is surely a type of doppelganger. Yes, they're mimicking a living person. But yeah, to me, that's an auditory doppelganger.
Yeah.
Yep, it is, which is referred to as a mimic. Yep. And
yeah.
you have said before, we discussed this the other week when we were discussing this topic, that you discussed that you had people that had said to you, "Oh, I saw you in such and such," and you weren't there.
Yeah, like lots when I was growing up. I lived on the North Shore in Auckland, and I usually or never went to Howick or Pakuranga, and apparently it was me walking around, but I wouldn't respond to anybody. And they're like, "How rude." And I'm like, "Well, I wasn't there that weekend. I haven't left the North Shore. I was about 12, so it's not like I could drive over there." And it happened quite multiple times. I had multiple people saying, "Oh, why did you snub me?" And I'm like, "What? What do you mean?"
Do you know, the funny thing is, and we'll touch upon the psychological aspects of doppelgangers a little bit later, but the funny thing is I had exactly the same thing happen to me during my late teens, early 20s, when I was having a lot of other freaky paranormal stuff present itself to me, that I had numerous people saying, "Oh, hey, what was the matter with you on Tuesday?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Well, I saw you in town and you walked past me and I said hi to you, and you gave me the most evil look and said nothing and kept walking." And I was actually quite scared of you. And I went, "I was actually out of town for the week. What are you talking about? I wasn't even in Hamilton, or I wasn't even in Kent."
Yeah.
And they were adamant, and this happened on numerous occasions. They were adamant they'd seen me, and I was actually quite frightening. And I completely ignored them, even when they spoke to me and went, "Oh, hi, Trace.
Yeah.
What are you up to? What are you up to?" I just looked at them, scowled, and they said they were really frightened. And I just continued walking and And I had people coming up to me really pissed off that I'd treat them like that. And I hadn't even been in town that week.
Yeah, the people weren't that bothered because they knew that I wasn't like that. Like if I know somebody, I would stop and talk. So I'm wondering if I have another, like not a biological twin, but another person that looks exactly
like you.
me,
I was just going to suggest.
Genetically completely different, but has somehow the same physical features.
I tried that. I tried that with these people, and I said, "Nah, it's probably someone that just looks like me." And they said, "No, mate, you had your clothes on, You had this top on, you had these trousers on you. I've seen you wear this before. You walked like you. Your mannerisms were like you. You were just really, really nasty. And I was like, yeah, no, wasn't me, mate. Honestly, it
But
was not me.
would it be a weird thing, not that you're genetically related, but they have the same thing with twins who separated? They marry similar people. They have the similar jobs. There's this.
Yeah.
They're almost exactly the same, but they're two different people. But they're genetically linked. Whereas,
But I ain't got no
as
twin.
far as I know, I don't have a twin.
I know I definitely don't have a twin.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be, because let's face it, there are only, every face well, the vast majority of faces have, 2 eyes, eyebrows, a nose, lips, cheeks, and so there are only so many genetic combinations in the world for a face, and so the chances are that we all do have an actual non-paranormal, at least one non-paranormal doppelganger.
Lookalike. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. At least one. So,
Agreed.
You have to consider that not every time you see or hear of someone looking like you, it may not actually be a paranormal God, I have difficulty with that word. I've only had
Doppelganger. Doppelganger.
Yeah, so it's like that is something that rather than immediately considering it to be paranormal, there's always a chance that it's not paranormal, and there's a perfectly rational explanation for them.
Well, if we're going to talk about the psychological aspects, and I'm bringing this a little bit forward now, there are cases where people that are under extreme anxiety, extreme duress of some kind, excuse me, it's like a disassociation of the self, if you like.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And psychology says that it is known about. They do have reports of it. So what are we looking at here? Are we looking at, and you know what? With the paranormal, I'm coming back to the brain time and time again.
Yeah.
And the possibilities that the brain has the ability to do certain things that we are not remotely aware of at this stage. And whether or not it be science or the paranormal field, that we're not aware of, that there are capabilities there.
Well, there are theories.
Like 10% of our brain or something like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there are theories.
Yeah.
There is a theory.
There is a I was going to talk about theories, but you can go ahead.
Okay. There is a theory that, like, your brain in times of emotional distress or overload, it actually misinterprets the sensory information that's coming into it, and as a result you see a distorted image of yourself, which you recognize as yourself, but you don't recognize it's you. As one theory, Tasha.
Yeah. I've heard of another one where supposedly we all have multiple universes potentially running in parallel, and then your doppelganger is you, but in a different universe that
dimension or universe,
through a wormhole, or has just ended up in the wrong timeline, because you could be centuries behind or centuries ahead.
And you know what? There is a case for this. And hang on a second. Let me just just wait a minute. I'm just going to get my case notes up. Exactly what you said, Tash. Hang on.
One of Taylor Ruddle's cases that he talked about?
No, this is completely different. I just want to find it in amongst all of my bloody notes here. There we go. So there is a case file about someone seeing themselves, right, in a street. This is in the UK, wearing certain clothes. Oh, no, sorry. There's a case file about someone having been seen in the street wearing certain clothes, and they have never been to that place. They've never been in that street, and they've never owned those clothes. And then several years later, they find themselves in that street.
Yeah.
And they click, and then they look at their clothes, and they're wearing exactly what the person who told them that they saw them in that street 10 years earlier, they're wearing exactly the same clothes that their doppelganger wore, that were unfamiliar to them at the time that they were seen, and they weren't even owned by them at the time of the incident. So
Like, could that time slip? Getting on to another
wow.
subject.
Well,
Deja vu.
I wouldn't say a time slip, because a time slip normally goes back into the past, and this person had never been in the street and never been in this town. So
Could it be
what I
deja
would say,
vu? You know, how sometimes you have, it's not necessarily you, and you don't know the situation, but you end up going, I remember this somehow.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that because this person, according to their response, they had never been there. They do not remember being there. What I suggest that this possibly was, and Barbara and I were speaking about this in depth one night, and we were talking about paranormal universes and how time isn't linear. So I would suggest that would be a case of timelines mashing for the individual that saw this person in that street with those clothes, only for that person to actually realize 10 years later, my God, I'm in this street in this town, and I'm wearing exactly what that person described to me 10 years earlier, but I've never been here. So I would say that would be like not a time slip, because a time slip is normally going backwards. I'd say that would be a time blip, basically. So their time flipped and meshed with another time when that person was walking down that street. So they literally looked into the future? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or was it weird? Like, could it have been, just devil's advocate, because someone said to them, you're in the street with these clothes, somehow it was psychosomatic, and they ended up in that street in the clothes and didn't realize it, because it was like a really old memory, or a very, deep repressed thing. And for some reason,
I think that would be a stretch, considering they didn't even own those clothes at the time that the person reportedly saw them. I mean, that's what you've got to look at, is you've got to look at the facts, and you've got to peel the bits out that the individual says and trust them on it. And how did that person then buy those exact clothes 10 years later? Yeah, that's a little bit of a stretch when we're talking about psychosomatic.
The person who saw them could suddenly see into the future somehow. And
that's what I'm saying.
How it came about. But not necessarily see a doppelganger, but maybe, I don't know, sensed that person was in the street in those clothes, and didn't notice them, and then talked to the person, and then 10 years later, for some reason, they were like, oh yeah, I'll buy those clothes, and oh yeah, I'll go to that street. Like,
yeah, no, that's reaching. That's a big reach in my book, and probably doesn't actually explain that incident. Yeah, I would say that's a pretty big reach, even though we're talking about doppelgangers supposedly or potentially psychologically being a dissociative situation. I would think that that would be a bit of a reach. When I read that person's case, they were pretty freaking freaked out. But I don't know.
It's definitely worth considering. Like, it's, you know, it definitely has merit to it. It is a possible explanation for it.
It is, but it's kind of like, it is a possible explanation. I don't, yeah. But I mean, it's a big reach.
But
it's a big reach. But then, what are these doppelgangers, Tash? That, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I've read lots and lots and lots, and I've seen lots, and I've had personal stories related to me about these doppelgangers that are actually quite sinister in their presentation of themselves.
Connotations, but is that because people heard that it's supposed to be sinister?
Well,
yeah. Or is it like, is it the evil twin theory? If there's two of you in the world, there's one that's evil.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other theories about doppelgangers is that it, or should I say, mystical theories about doppelgangers, and I mean, this has been spoken about by mystics for hundreds of centuries, is that they are your shadow self. So I remember a story, and I think I related it to you, Barb, about how a young boy was going to school one morning, got himself dressed, and his dad said, okay, you know, head out to the car, son. Yelled to him from upstairs, head out to the car when you're ready, son. He went out, he opened up the door, and he saw his dad by the car. And his dad was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans. And he went to walk out of the door. And as he did, his father turned around and looked at him. And he said his father had such an evil, nasty look on his face. And he was so shocked that he just stood there and he froze. He said because he knew there was something not right about his dad. And then the next minute, his dad grabbed him by the back of the shirt and yanked him in the house and slammed the door. His dad had seen the doppelganger as well. And he said to his dad, Dad, what's going on? And his dad just said, do not go outside, son. Do not go outside. And he said his dad was visibly frightened. And he was only about 12 or something at the time.
Maybe they're not evil. Maybe they got resting bee face.
Well, I don't know.
What
the hell are they?
The thing is,
what the hell are they?
In ancient Egypt, doppelgangers were actually considered as a positive force. They were considered to be they were considered to sort of walk with you or walk beside you, and they were a vital link between this world and the afterlife. And it was your doppelganger who, once you passed away, would lead you into the afterlife. So they were very revered, and they were considered very, a very positive.
Well, that's interesting, because I read something about in the Western world that doppelgangers were considered to be malevolent, but by locations were considered to be holy. Because there's plenty of priests that have been previously been able to bilocate themselves, which is kind of projecting another aspect or an identical aspect of yourself somewhere else. As you said earlier, Tash, like an astral projection of yourself, although it's not astral, because to be able to see astral bodies, one has to be able to see astral entities, and if you can't, then you can't. It's like seeing an aura, supposedly. If you can't see those, then you can't see them, and that's all there is to it. So I don't know. It's a huge subject.
Yeah, the guardian theory is quite interesting, because
I agree.
Maybe it's not like another being, but it's a part of you that has been
ultimately,
for some reason has
mm,
astral projected, for want of a better word, out of you, like it's a particular part of your personality, and hence why it may or may not interact with other people, or because it can't. It's only a small part of yourself, and somehow it's projected out to somebody else. Whether
but
that's
it's
a
only like the
neurological
shower.
thing, as Barbara said, being under lots of stress, you're dissociating, you could have been hallucinating at the time, your brain's trying to piece stuff together.
But you're doing all this subconsciously, otherwise you wouldn't know that you're actually projecting another part of yourself.
Yeah, it must be something subconscious.
What we need to keep in mind when we're discussing this is astral bodies and physical bodies are two entirely different things. People don't see astral bodies as they see physical bodies. They're very different.
This is a different subject, but when people see shadow people, they're solid, but no one's run up and touched one and gone, they're there. So when people have seen me, for instance, they haven't run up and like touched me. They've just called out to me. I look solid. Whoever that was, I look solid like a person.
Yeah.
But they may not necessarily be solid. It could be all a illusion of sorts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
it's such a big subject.
It is. It's huge. It's huge. It's absolutely huge.
So many rabbit holes, you know.
It's absolutely huge. And the thing is, I don't think, and this is why I mentioned the difference between bilocation and doppelgangers. I don't think you can put doppelgangers in a doppelganger box, because there could be a number of different reasons why you're seeing a duplication of an individual or yourself. So if you're seeing a duplication of yourself, excuse me being me is going to go straight to, okay, disassociative, psychological aspect. I'm disassociating. I got to go and see a psychiatrist.
There's another, some people say they're hallucinations or hallucinating,
Because you're really tired. You think you saw somebody in a crowd, and you're like, it could have been someone walking past. It didn't even look like you, but for some reason, because you're so tired, you're psychologically drained. You're like, oh, that's Bob.
I mean, there are a lot of different reasons why people hallucinate. Yeah, it could be through tiredness or illness. It could be.
So hang on a minute. Then do forensic sciences and forensic psychiatry have the answer to doppelgangers, with the explanation that they are a result of a dissociative process and more of a hallucination from those that are suffering overwhelming fears, anxiety, epilepsy, or major psychosis, where splitting is seen as an evil unknown side to the self, and getting rid of their shit by their splitting process. Could forensic science and forensic psychiatry have the answer to doppelgangers?
Why one of them is thought to be one of the beings is thought to be evil, because that's like the
shadow self, as I said earlier. The shadow self of oneself.
Okay, we solved
it. We what?
We've solved it.
We've solved it. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
We're done.
Everybody. Good night.
Okay. Live stream over.
I mean, all sorts of cultures have doppelgangers. Like, you think about the skinwalkers. Like, if you hear someone sound like somebody that you know at nighttime, Native American Indians, they say, if anyone's knocking, if you hear someone you calling out to you at night, don't go outside.
I'm not answering.
Don't even go out to the window. Even if you see someone that looks like somebody don't approach, don't leave the house, pull the curtains and go to bed.
I'm not gonna. I'm gonna call fucking Tash and Barbara.
There are so many different possibilities. One of the more out there while I was doing a little bit of reading about doppelgangers, and one suggestion was made that apparently it's the government is cloning people
No.
and then killing the original
Please.
people off. Okay. We've
I
got
mean,
to consider everything. We've got to think about it all.
No,
that
I don't.
sounds far-fetched,
I
but
don't.
you can clone people, and you can clone
Yeah,
organs.
pull them off.
So it makes sense to a certain extent, because even though it's ethically wrong, we can actually do that. So
Well, they
say
did that
they
with the
kill you
didn't
off
they?
for a
What was their
better
name?
version of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay,
to give
okay.
them
But
a
hang on a
heart or a
minute.
liver or whatever.
Hang
Sorry,
on a
Denise.
minute. When we get to things like President Abraham Lincoln
Oh, yes, yes.
saw
yeah.
his doppelganger in the mirror, but was
Mhm.
5 shades paler than himself. When Percy Shelley, the poet, saw his
Queen
own
Elizabeth
doppelganger
I.
just before
Yeah.
his death, when
Yeah.
Catherine the Great saw
Yeah,
her
yeah.
doppelganger sitting on the throne and her guards shot at it, although there
Yeah.
not anything that says what happens after that point.
I'm
And
not
when-
saying that.
And when
that's the
Queen
first
Elizabeth
theory.
I
Yeah.
also was seen to have said her doppelganger lying in bed looking very sickly, and both her and Catherine the Great and Percy and President Abraham Lincoln died shortly thereafter. I don't think we're talking about cloning when we're going back
I
that
don't know,
far.
because I mean they're all very important and influential people, aren't they? It's like you don't
Yeah.
hear of John
Yeah,
Smith
but I
from
don't think that
Birmingham
they would be cloned in
James
1743.
Well,
Elizabeth
who
I. It's
who
not.
says it's the government? What if it's aliens? They may
Someone.
have the technology, which is far-fetched.
It's
But
Okay, so
people.
what would be their reason for doing that?
because Abraham Lincoln was freeing the slaves,
Yeah, and like they all
and
were
people didn't
The
like
poet
that.
Shelley? Why would Shelley be cloned by aliens?
Well, they made a
Why not?
mistake.
No. Wait a minute. Not cloned, because he died and was never seen again. Let's remember that. These people were never seen again in their form
Yeah,
that they
bodies.
had during
It was
life.
their bodies, like they're the original bodies, but they
No,
had
shit,
already.
you guys going to start talking this shit? I'm going to have to start taking pills. Seriously.
Thinking, but I mean,
Look,
if you
I was just
take
offering
them
that
out.
as a possible explanation that I had read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Thanks for
also-
your offering. I'm chucking that fucker in the bin. Thanks.
Okay.
What if they're not cloning them? What if they're just taking them out because they disagree with what they're doing?
Oh, we better watch out, Tasha.
Well, I mean, that's okay. And then we're not talking about doppelgangers. So,
If we die,
But they saw their doppelganger. Maybe
Yeah.
that was a way of telling them your time is up.
or maybe it's a
you have screwed
doppelganger
up.
kills them.
You're gone now. You are disposable.
Ta-ta.
yeah.
What if they were
nah.
aliens
Mm.
to start off with?
What about
Rabbit holes tonight.
if your doppelganger can wander through time at will, like the mystics of centuries ago suggested?
Yeah, exactly. Has anyone seen Stephen's comment? Oh,
Yep.
yeah. You love it. You love it.
Yeah.
No, we haven't, Stephen. It's just as paranormal investigators, we need to think about all of the options and consider everything carefully.
We are
'Cause nobody
going.
knows 100% everything. Everything
Hmm.
is a theory. So if you can come up with a better conspiracy theory, aliens, clones, men in black.
Stephen, what can I say, Stephen? Stephen, you're coming on an investigation with us shortly. You will understand losing your marbles when you sit down at 4 a.m. and drink wine with us and discuss paranormal theories. Then you will lose your marbles, I can assure you. So Welcome to the club.
Well, it's actually like during these sorts of discussions, I mean, that's how things get sorted. That's how we can kick ideas around. And yeah, some things are absolutely ridiculous. I totally, not the conspiracy theory or the alien theory, but some of the things tonight have been absolutely ridiculous. And that's
But
fine.
we still have to go there because that's
Yes.
part of what we should be doing as
Even
paranormal
if it's
investigators.
Right.
And you know what?
Absolutely bonkers. Even if it's like so far-fetched you can't believe it. Because
Yeah.
when these things happen, you have to rationalize it to
Don't
some
even talk.
extent. And whether that's aliens, clones, skinwalkers.
Do you know what?
Hungry
This
cow.
was so weird. We were doing a doppelganger exercise because I had an incident last night with something that I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I really did. I actually did. And Lois will attest to it because I messaged it straight away and said, holy shit, I've just seen something. And yes, Stephen, absolutely.
What if we're just simulations?
Fucking,
Yeah. Or hallucinations in another
We're all
person's.
a virtual reality.
Yeah.
Like
I
the
would
Matrix.
I would not be surprised because I have said since I was about 10 years old that we were an experiment that was dumped down here by aliens and they looked and we failed and they left. It's as
I was
simple
going
as
to say, and
that.
they laughed and they laughed and they
And they
laughed.
laughed and they laughed and then they left. And they come
What
back
if
every
they-
so often and check and then go, yeah, nah.
This is
And
sort of
true
a
New
sidetrack,
Zealand.
but I really love South Park, and they had a theory that they have all these aliens that bet on what we're going to do next. So they have all these different channels. So you imagine a channel network, and they watch it for fun, and they place bets on what's going to happen next on this planet with these
Oh,
beings.
darling, that's based on a movie from when I was about 10, actually
It's so
earlier than
hilarious.
that. And it was about the gods, the Greek gods playing with chess pieces.
Yeah, with the pieces.
And we were the chess pieces.
Yeah.
And they were playing chess with us and deciding what happened in our lives. That's what that's based on. That was
But
actually a really good movie.
What made it funnier was because I'm part Jewish, I can joke about this, is the aliens were Jewish, betting money to see what the beings would do next. And if it was too boring, then they annihilate the planet.
Yeah, well, I think they should have done. Well, we're obviously not bloody boring. That's a dead cert.
Well, it's getting a bit old, though. Oh, we're going to have a nuclear war. We're all going to die. All this stuff. But that's getting a bit boring, especially for a millennial that's been through so many.
Well, it wasn't boring for the guys who went World War I and World War II, so I won't belittle what they went through by saying that. However, I think it's conspiracy theorist bullshit that we're going to die from
Tracy,
war.
don't sugarcoat it. Just say what you mean.
I'm not. Come on, Barbara. You should know me by now. You've known me long enough. I don't sugarcoat no shit, honey.
What about World War I and World War II being a way to cull?
What about World War I and World War II and the Holocaust being an absolute bloody conspiracy theory and it never happened? Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Oh, you're having an entire war. The war is being conspiracy.
I have actual family members that had tattoos from that.
Oh, really?
I'm not disputing that. I'm talking about others who do.
I know.
Right.
I have families that fought in the Boer War, World War I, and World War II. Family members.
I think we all do.
You know, to those millennials that say it never happened. Because it did.
Us millennials don't talk about that stuff. We're too busy watching whether we're going to get blown up by nuclear warheads or not.
Yeah. Oh,
or
I don't know.
The recession's going to roll around, or we're more And
I don't think that's going to happen because Trump's too busy putting on his fucking
Hi,
tan
Colleen.
and making sure his hair's okay.
We're actually getting off subject, ladies.
Totally
and
off subject, Tash.
To stay on
Totally
subject.
off subject. So let's go back to doppelgangers.
Hang on, 1 minute. Lois, I need to tell you a story about it's quite similar to your thing that you've just put up there.
Does it have to do with doppelgangers?
It doesn't. No, I'll tell you some other time, Lois, because I've got a very, very similar story. It probably does have to do with doppelgangers, but it's a bit close to my heart at the moment.
Oh, so okay. All right. Sweet.
So, yeah.
Oh, hey, Colette. Nice to see you. So what the hell are these things? It seems like we're talking about different aspects of doppelgangers, doesn't it? Really?
There seem to be a lot of different types of doppelgangers, and we haven't yet. I mean, you said it in passing, but we haven't really talked about the famous doppelgangers in history. I mean, in passing, Tracy mentioned, Catherine the Great was in bed one night. And
no. She saw her doppelganger sitting in her throne.
Okay, the story I read was she was in her bed one night and one of her servants saw her doppelganger sitting on her throne. So they got her and said, "You're sitting on your throne." She went and had a look, saw her own doppelganger, ordered the doppelganger shot, and she died just, a few days afterwards. It's just 2 weeks after that incident, she passed away. So, to me, that's the true essence of what a doppelganger is.
Yes.
A apparition that is seen by the person themselves. You see your own doppelganger, and that appears to be when people will pass shortly afterwards, or have some tragedy befall them. So that's one of the very famous ones.
And same as Queen Elizabeth I.
Yes,
who saw her doppelganger lying in the bed as she walked into her chamber, looking absolutely sickly and freaked out. And then a couple of weeks later, she died. Yeah.
And I think that's where that feeling of dread comes from, where people say, oh, you feel dread when you see it, because when you think that that's going to mean you're going to pass away, of course you'd have a feeling of dread.
What about
sorry, Josh.
I've got a crazy crackpot theory, another one. So what if that wasn't a doppelganger per se? What if that was death coming to say, hey, your time is up?
Ooh. Yeah.
And freaked you out because you're like, what is going on? I don't understand. And then when you do die, as Barbara said with the Egyptians, not a doppelganger, but death leads you into the afterlife as yourself, because it's less terrifying than a guy with a scythe and a...
That's actually a really interesting theory, Tasha, because Percy Bysshe Shelley, an English poet, he actually saw his own doppelganger on several occasions throughout his life, and he spoke to it about his wife several times. But then the final time he saw his doppelganger asked if he would ever be content. And a couple of weeks later, he died. He drowned in a boating accident.
Died in a boating accident, yeah.
So that could actually give some credibility to that theory, Tasha. Like
all theories.
Question. Well, yeah, a theory, but it still might have something. Oh.
The thing is that what we've got to think about is we've got to think about the parameters about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we've got to think about what fits into those parameters of what we're discussing. And I think, to be quite honest with you, that as you said earlier, Barbara, there are different types of doppelgangers.
There
I
seem
mean,
to
that's
be.
no different than any other paranormal theories, like whether you have intelligent or residual hauntings. Like, why
Yeah.
does that happen? Why is there two different hauntings rather than just the one?
Well, the other thing you could say too with regards to that is it the person that's haunted or is it the place that's haunted?
Oh, I know. Or is it hallucinations, or is it just
Yeah.
psychological or
So
physical problem?
we are
I
gonna
know.
play with this forever. You so know this, right? And we're all coming from different perspectives, but everything everyone's saying has got validity in it. Honestly, even though I'm saying to you, Tash, oh, fucking conspiracy theories.
I'm just going to blame the aliens.
Well, I'm
It
not going to
still has
disagree here.
Let me
validity.
now.
It still has validity, So you
Absolutely.
can't, I think, and you know what? I think that's telling us you can't discount anything in this field.
Yeah, like how would you measure that? Would you capture it on camera?
Nice.
Yes.
Actually,
a really good thought.
Just want to give Hex a shout out. It is a fascinating subject, and I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
So really glad you're here and glad you're enjoying it. We're not like other podcasts. We're raw, honey.
I have
We're all
another
very
story
different.
that I was told about a doppelganger. So I went to the Airedale Asylum, and they were telling us about, because they do tours through there, and one of the ladies was talking about, I think it was a male colleague, and she was in a completely different wing. And this place is massive. So if you think Kingseed is big, if you think
I've heard
Tokyo
it's
is big,
huge.
this place is way bigger with more buildings. So in a particular building where...
Can I stop you there for a sec, Tash? Does that mean that they've got more mental people in Australia than New Zealand?
Well, they had more people and they were mostly criminals. So, yes.
Sorry, I'm just being an asshole.
I'd say yes, because they'd have more psychopaths and things, right?
Yeah, proportionally. It must be.
So
listen, I don't have much wine left and I nearly lost half of that. Sorry, go on.
So she was telling the story about one day she was setting up and making sure parts of the building were locked because obviously they're not safe to be in structurally. And she actually had a conversation with a male colleague in the same building. And then when she went downstairs to the main office, which is out the front, the colleague walked through the door and she goes, "Oh, what are you doing out there? Blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "I just came into work." And she's like, no, I saw you at block wherever it was. Whoa. And he's like, no. I've just walked in the door now. I've just parked up. I'm ready to do our tours tonight. And she was just like, what?
No way. She had seen him in the asylum when he wasn't there.
Yeah, and actually talked to him.
And he answered her?
He answered.
See, that's different again. That completely
exactly
theory of it just being a little part of somebody and they're just the shell and so therefore don't respond.
Yeah.
And then that also separates that evil aspects that people get and that scary and the look on the face that is so evil when they look at them. Yeah. And that puts that in a completely different category. And then we get another one that will totally interact.
Yeah.
Holy.
It's like, sorry, Barbara.
I was just going to say, I've also seen a doppelganger myself. It was actually in a graveyard, a small graveyard by a church and on top of the hill in Parnell. A friend and myself, also a paranormal investigator, but we weren't investigating. She just lived nearby, and so we'd gone for a wander through the graveyard. And there was this other guy who was there, just wearing a checked shirt, and he looked normal, just wearing glasses, just wandering around looking at the graves because it was quite picturesque. And so we just walked around the corner and that guy is now over here. So we went back around the corner and he's there. And so we kind of laughed about it and said, oh, twins, what on earth's going on? Didn't really think anything more about it because we were just sort of so busy yakking until we came around the corner and he's there again. And it's like, what is going on with this guy? And so we go around the front of the church and we can see the back entrance, and the guy who we just saw, like quite close to us, has somehow managed to cover quite a lot of distance up the hill and is leaving. And we saw him go through the gates to leave, have a look around the corner again, and we assumed that it was us. We were just being, they just looked similar, or so we assumed it was us being dippy. We walked around the corner and the guy's there again. What the? So there were two of them. There were two men. They looked exactly the same facial features, same clothing, and they were both in sort of different areas and wandering around. No explanation, unless they were identical twins who decided to confuse us. Let's come and confuse people, let's.
Do you know what I think?
Yeah.
I think that we have come to one conclusion, which is the same conclusion that others have come to by our discussions, and that is that doppelgangers are related to either dimensional shifts or time shifts.
Yeah,
Based on the case files that are out there, they seem to fall into those two realms, as well as the other dimensions that we've discussed about.
Actually, that's something that I was going to say before and I forgot to. If you remember, we had Taylor Ruddle
yes.
on a few weeks ago now, and he's got his podcast. I'm sorry, Taylor, I can't remember what the podcast is called.
The podcast is called Phantom Files.
That's it, Phantom Files. Really interesting. But while I was listening to those, he has a really interesting story about possibly kind of fits into the doppelganger box.
Genre.
But also it talks, it's like this doppelganger goes between dimensions. Have a listen to Taylor's podcast, Phantom Files.
We'll put his link down in the description.
Yeah. I think it's either episode 1 or 2, but I'm pretty sure he says what it is. And it's Under a Burning House or something like that is the name.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So and I found that really interesting, and it sort of falls between doppelgangers and dimensions. So worth a listen.
Yeah, the thing is that the explanation or the explanations of it being a dimension or a time shift, a dimension shift, or a time shift actually really does fit with the descriptions of doppelgangers in the past and the present. But then you've got to drill it down a bit further, and then you've got to look at these little aspects of it, whether or not the doppelgangers interacted, whether or not the doppelganger has come with a sense of foreboding or evil or menacing intent, that sort of thing, whether the doppelganger hasn't interacted at all and just kept walking regardless of whether they've been spoken to or not, like a robot. So I think there's all these different aspects that also need to be taken into consideration with that.
Could Gina had, like, just as you get residual ghosts, I wonder if you do, as Tasha sort of alluded to before, do we get residual doppelgangers as well? That sort of,
you might do, but then that doesn't explain people seeing themselves.
No,
do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. No, but there seem to be doppelgangers that people see of themselves and doppelgangers that people see of other people.
others.
And
So what
sometimes
you're
they interact and sometimes they don't. And even with doppelgangers that people see of themselves, sometimes they interact and other times there's no interaction. Like with Queen Elizabeth I when she just saw herself lying in the bed. But with Shelley's
doppelganger, experience
to him. Yeah. So there seem to be like two different types.
So
different types.
So what you're saying is, could we possibly be looking at a residual doppelganger, like we look at a residual haunting?
Yeah.
And then looking at a haunting and looking at a doppelganger, which fits the same style of a haunting, if you know what I mean.
A residual doppelganger could actually be from a time like, Queen Elizabeth I, seeing her body, her body lying in a bed looking pale and very ill. Did she see herself at death? And that was a time slip. Her body has gone backwards, slipped forwards.
Holy shit. So now we're talking about doppelgangers potentially being time slips, potentially being time shifts, which is a totally different thing. Let's not say time slip. Let's just say time shift.
Yeah.
And also a dimension shift as well.
Yeah, well, I think that dimension and time are they are intertwined as well. But
Hello, is that a psychiatrist? Can I have some pills, please?
What if it's something as stupid as, like, even if we are simulation or we're test subjects per se, we're just basically being, beamed around, teleported just for fun.
Yes.
To see if it works, say.
Like
that could explain that guy being in one place, you turn the corner and he's over there and he's back again.
Now wait a minute. If it is a time loop, is it a reflection or a refraction?
Not a time loop.
Hang on a minute. No. Wait.
Real time. I'm talking about real time.
So no. We're just talking about not what you're talking about now. We're just talking about a theory in general. So if it is a time loop, is it a reflection or a refraction of some undiscovered principle in physics? That's an excellent observation.
It's possible because they're finding new matter all the time. They've found a new type of subatomic particle last week, I believe.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is where we go back, or we return to, or we look at quantum physics, or quantum. Apparently, it was quantum physics in my day. The new name now is quantum mechanics. Pretty much very similar. Very similar. But
string or light theory.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of body and experience, not quite. It doesn't quite fit the bill of OBEs. Not quite. But good point. Again, excellent point. Again. Excuse me.
But it could be like some could be like, because if you have an out of body experience, it would be interesting to see, to experiment and see, has anybody actually seen somebody having an out of body experience actually out of their body?
I've had a few, but I can't say that anyone's actually seen me.
Yeah, no one's actually seen you.
Oh, actually, no, that's not true. That's not true. I have had one, and the person that I turned around and said to, I said, I had a really vivid dream of you today. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, I had a really vivid dream. I saw the clock saying 3 o'clock. You were standing in the kitchen and you were doing this. And then you turned around to one of your kids, and I named the child, and I said, and you said this. And she turned around and she said, get the f- out of here.
Wow.
And I went, what? And she said, that's exactly what happened at that time, because I looked at the clock, and you know what the weirdest thing was? And I said, what's that? She said, when I turned around, I swear to God, I saw you standing there for 1 split second.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
And that was years and years and years ago that occurred. And all I remember was I had a dream. I saw her in her kitchen. In my dream, I looked at the clock. It said 3 o'clock. Her kids were sitting there. One of them said something to her. She answered them. And then I left. And then that's all I remember of the dream. And then, but I remembered what she was wearing. So I said to her when I woke up, I had this really weird dream about you. I described what she was wearing. I described it through. She said to me, I'm wearing those clothes right now. I did say that to my child. It was 3 o'clock because I remember looking at the clock. But the weirdest thing was I turned around and I swear to God, I saw you for a split second.
That's incredible. That is
What's
incredible.
that astral projection?
Yes.
It
I had a similar thing when I was at school camp. I was up at Snell's Beach, and I used to live on the North Shore, and I had a dream, and apparently because we all had bunks, apparently I woke people up talking about one of my cats, telling my cats to get off the roof. And then when I got home, I found out that one of our cats had jumped off the neighbor's roof and attacked the other cat, and we had to put her down anyway because she had cancer when I got back from camp.
Oh,
But I don't know if anyone saw me like yelling at her outside, like, get off the roof, get off the roof.
Mm.
So, I mean,
really bizarre.
just even OBEs slightly come into doppelgangers.
Exactly. Some of these doppelgangers could be OBEs. People having an OBE.
Yeah.
Just like some of these doppelgangers could be by locations where people have the ability to project a double of themselves in another location without even realizing they have the ability to do that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like crazy shit, isn't it? I mean, where do you go with this stuff? Do you know what? When my dad got me into this stuff and I was like bloody 8, he said, his exact words were, you could disappear up your own backside trying to explain half of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's right. And you know what? 50 years later, I'm disappearing up my own backside trying to explain half of this stuff.
We just have no clue, you know.
No, we don't.
The more we learn and the more we look at it, the less
we know.
Yeah.
And you know what? Barbara and I have said this again and again and again, and we're going to do a podcast on this, I reckon. I don't think we're meant to know.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I say that all the time. I know nothing about nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hang on 1 second. I'm just going to put up Hex's comment. Like, how time isn't linear. No, it's not. And multi-universe theory, don't even get me started. Thinking about the universe suddenly folding through, laugh out loud, terrifying.
Dreams I hadn't even thought of that.
Oh, dreams, not always dreams. Astral projection when you nearly bring things back. I know. Boom.
Well, I can agree with that. Like, if you look at anything in nature, whether it be you go from a mathematical lens or a physical lens, nothing in nature is linear.
No.
It is a very complicated, non-linear equation.
Yeah, I completely...
Or non-linear based theory or,
Yep,
whatever.
And I will utterly go to the end of time with the fact that time is not linear.
We know it's not linear because it's slowing down.
Absolutely. Well, I wish me fucking aging wouldn't, me bloody wrinkles would.
We've been told. So back in the dinosaur days, time was faster, whether that's relative to how we spin and everything else, but it actually shows that time is actually slowing down. So days are getting longer, everything's getting stretched out.
So when you say time was faster, do you mean the world was spinning faster, or, you know, like a year actually went faster, or it took some, you know, like, is this just relative to the Earth's relation to the universe?
That, and also that they've actually proven with very accurate clocks that time is actually slowing down.
Wow.
So stuff
Okay.
that loses like a nanosecond or a picosecond over 100 years is showing that time is actually, so it has nothing to do with the sun or the light and day and
Okay.
night. It's
Yeah.
to do with something else in our universe that is stretching time
So
out.
are they saying time's slowing down?
Yeah.
I want more money then.
You
Because I'm
have
working
more
more.
time to make
I'm
it.
working more
Tracy.
hours.
I know.
Tracy, you have more time to make it now. Even if it's only a
Make
picosecond or two.
Make what? Make my life last longer, please. No.
Well, it is.
I don't
Just
want
by-
it to.
Oh,
Just by
no.
little tiny fragments, like not noticeable at the
Hey,
moment. But if you
listen.
look over 1,000 years,
I
it'll be
have this
significant.
wonderful saying, and I will say it again and again and again, and I've had it for years. The more I learn, the less I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have another one, which I stand by. I know more than most.
Pass the wine. Oh, no,
and
that's
less,
the wrong one.
No. I know more than most and
Yeah.
less than some.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
biggest thing I stand by is pass the fucking wine.
Pass the wine.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about is time dilation. So if you have two clocks
Oh,
at different parts of the world, they can show
Yeah.
different times, even if
Yeah.
they're being set to the same time and transported. Apparently, it's quite significant depending on the distance from the core of the Earth.
so we're off
Okay.
on the tangent, and we're not back to doppelgangers again. So I
But
think we have.
it's an explanation, like time dilation. Maybe.
I think we've come to the conclusion that doppelgangers are not as cut and dried as what most people think they are. It's not a case of seeing somebody that interacts with you or somebody that doesn't. It's not a case of seeing somebody that has a menacing or an ominous aura that is a doppelganger, or somebody that isn't. It's just what?
Yeah.
What? It's just what? No one freaking knows. And there seems to be different, as you said earlier, when we were having a wee little discussion, different, we're talking about different categories, literally, of doppelgangers or different types of doppelgangers, but not to be confused with those who can willingly project themselves, i.e. either by locations or astral travel. And let's keep in mind those that astral travel, unless you can see astral entities or astral beings, you won't see their astral body. Interestingly enough, an astral body is the first thing that you see before you see an aura, supposedly. I've seen one person's astral body.
I see auras sometimes, and I don't see astral bodies.
I've never seen an aura, but I've seen one person's astral body, and the person's astral body that I saw was the Druid priest of the UK at the time, and that's the only astral body I've ever seen. But I think that's because he could project his energy, or he was vibrating on a really high energy level that actually allowed me to see him.
I've got another story that I've also discussed on here, so I'll keep it brief. It was also at Airedale, which is a really weird place.
I want to go
we were-
there.
We were in the matron's quarters doing a communication session. I had a camera on me so you could see my mouth, you could see my face, because I had a full spectrum camera and light. And basically what we captured was a phrase that I said a few hours before, not there, but about 2 kilometers away at the hotel, where I was talking to a certain person, and I only said, say that certain phrase to that person. A mimic, both on camera and 2 different recording devices, picked up me talking, but my mouth wasn't moving, saying that same phrase.
That's
And
interesting.
Barbara-
I think it's a story. Yeah.
I was
In
just
fact,
going to
I've got
say
the EVP. Well, I call it an EVP, but
that EVP you captured, and you said that individual had left. They'd been
Yeah.
gone for hours. They
Yeah.
weren't there, and yet I know that individual, and that's his voice.
yeah.
But
So
I was
I
in the
reckon
same
that was a
room,
mimic.
and we
Mhm.
didn't hear it when we were doing the communication session.
Same
It wasn't
thing
until-
with my one.
Yeah,
Same thing with
And
my
then
one. We
it wasn't
heard it.
until Cal was reviewing some of my footage and things, because I had another voice recorder which was close to me, and then another team member had a voice recorder running, that we captured the same thing. So 3 different devices, and apparently that's really common, doppelgangers and mimics in that building for some
In
reason.
Airedale. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
really like to go to Airedale. We need to take a trip,
Yeah.
girls. Road trip. Road trip.
It's only like 2 hours out of Melbourne. It's not that far.
I
Yeah.
reckon we should do it.
It is
It's
a
a
big
very
place, so you have
Nice.
to do more than one night. It's
Oh.
got so many buildings, and
Yeah.
Well, you have
you
to do
definitely
more.
need more. We
have
spent
to do
7
more.
hours there, and about
to do
3
more.
hours with no tours running.
You have to do more than
When we
one
went
night
there.
everywhere, let's face it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're up to nearly an hour and a half now, an hour and 20 minutes. So I think we've exhausted everything and come to absolutely no conclusion, and completely spun our heads round in a 360 degree and made Linda Blair look like an amateur. But if you know who Linda Blair is, but yeah, we've presented what we know, what we've discovered, you know. So yeah, you make up your own minds. You go out, do your own research, find out what you want to find out, and we're going to call it a night. Now, next week, on Friday at 8 p.m, it won't be a live, it's going to be a pre-record. We will be talking to, I think her name is Kat Williams from memory. Let me just double check. Kat Ward. We're going to be talking to Kat Ward from Canada, who is a paranormal investigator in Canada, and she's going to be our guest speaker. So join us Friday night at 8 p.m, or should I say, watch our video Friday night at 8 p.m. It'll be released then. And we'll talk to her about how she executes her investigations, what places she's done in Canada, and find out about some of the haunted locations there. So that'll be really cool. The week after that, Barb, it's your spotlight. You're going to be doing...
There's time slips the week after that. We've got a live on time slips, and the week after that, then I'm doing Napier.
Oh, no, hang on. Sorry, I beg your pardon. The week after our guest speaker from Canada, we've actually got Have We Got It Right, Barb?
Oh, okay. I must be looking at an old one. Yeah.
Yeah. Have we got it right? And this is all about paranormal investigating, and have we got it right? And then the week after that, Barb's going to be doing a live on Napier Prison.
Yeah.
And we're gonna hold a live on Have We Got It Right as well, so that you guys can come in with your thoughts while we discuss whether or not we think we've got paranormal investigating in the field right. But yeah, join us after that for hang on a minute. Someone's got a quick question.
X has got a question.
Just a question for the end. Did anyone know of the Returned Soldiers Convalescent Rehabilitation Home State Farm? It's an Edwardian, I think, building with a domed library out Old Kopu Orcs. Tash, that's your region.
Kopu?
Old Kopu Orcs, as
I
in...
never heard of Old Kopu.
Is that
like
Auckland?
West Auckland?
Auckland, that's Auckland, but Old Kopu?
Is that West Auckland?
Whereabouts is that, Hex? Where? I haven't heard. I'm an Auckland girl. I haven't heard of that.
It's a settlement on the Coromandel, according to that.
Coromandel.
Kopu, yeah.
Pyra.
Yeah. Ah, you mean Pyro or Kopu?
Yeah,
there
Kopu.
is. Well, Kopu's in Thames. Pyro is in Pyro. I think you might be talking about an old hospital that was just on the outskirts of Pyroa. It's had a number of uses over the years. I hadn't heard that it was a Returned Soldiers Convalescent Rehabilitation Home, but it very possibly was, because it seems like, a lot of the hospitals were used for different things during the day. If it is that one that you're talking about, I think it was Margaret Beatty Hospital or something like that. And unfortunately, I was trying to get us in there to do an investigation, and but it's now been demolished. They literally have started demolishing it. Almost finished demolishing it. It looks like they're down to basically the basement now.
That sucks.
So if that's what you were talking about, Hex, that's what the story is there.
No, she says it's Dairy Flat, and I'm like, I don't recall any hospitals out Dairy Flat or Red Vale or anywhere out there, or even Silverdale. It's not to say that there wasn't something there, but I've never heard of a hospital being out there. An old one.
We can definitely have a look.
Yeah, we can have a look, but
find out.
Yeah.
Send us a pin drop and we'll hit it.
Yeah.
Let's see, is it Old Kopu Hospital?
Old Kopu.
Anything?
It just says it's in Kopu, which is Thames.
Out Coromandel, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 5 kilometres from Thames.
I don't know. Unless there's a hospital that nobody knows about.
Well, it might not be a hospital. I mean, I've just said that hospital because I know that in Pyro it was a hospital. I mean, it could be. I mean, she says it's a Edwardian / state farm, so it might be a farmhouse and a farm.
Which is highly probable, because that was, and still most of it is farmland.
Old highway before the
if you
harbour
go north on the old highway just before the harbour bridge.
There's a Kopu Road in Dairy Flats.
North on Old Highway. The Upper Harbour Bridge, you mean?
Yeah, must be Upper
There's
Harbour.
a big house there. There's a big house there. I do know, and I know of the family who used to live there. Is it on the left, Hex? Just before the bridge? And there's this big old house. And you know who used to live there? The Lawson Quins. They lived there. But I don't think it was built new for them. And
yeah,
I don't even know if it's still there.
Yeah, it does. I don't think it exists anymore because they put a whole bunch of houses, and
It's been developed.
It's not Helensville. I'm just thinking Hobsonville, which used to be a base.
Hang on,
there was an old building there, but there was a big mansion, a big white building, as you came down heading into West Auckland from the North Shore on the right-hand side.
I'm thinking if you went the other way, what's it called, Hobsonville? I'm thinking of the other way, whereby if you were going from West Auckland towards the bridge to go to the North Shore, there was a big house, a huge house.
It was a big white one, right, Barbara?
Yeah, I think so.
It was a massive white one, and it was a fancy
Hex is
restaurant.
going, yeah, that one.
But it got bold. It's houses now.
Is it gone? Really?
I remember going to Costco that way. We were picking something up for Cal, and I was like,
There
"Oh,
was
that
a
big
really
white
big
building's gone. That was there."
It's probably on what was called. Oh, yeah, I do see that it was Hobsonville Park, and it does look as though it might be gone. Yeah.
I know it's definitely gone because we went last year.
Oh, well, there you go.
Costco to Green Hive to pick something up, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that massive white building's gone. It's all the yucky 2-story townhousey boxy things."
Okay. Yeah.
All right,
that's a
go.
shame.
Excuse me. Thanks for that, Hex. So,
If you think of anywhere else, just let us know.
yeah, definitely, for sure. Send us a message. You can send us a message on Ghosts or the Quantum page, and we'll look into it for sure. All right, guys.
One. It was opposite the Brickworks.
I think now we're up to our hour and a half, and we've gone way off topic on our subject, and we have done the subject to death, and we are none the wiser and probably more confused than what we were when we first started. And welcome to the paranormal. That's all I've got to say with regards to that.
It's time to Blind Frog Ranch.
So, yep, as I said, we've got Cat Ward from Canada next week, 8 o'clock Friday. And then the week after that, we've got, what did I say we had, Barbara?
Napier Prison.
Napier Prison.
Oh, no. Not time. Are we doing it right?
Oh, so we're going to discuss the whole paranormal field.
You can
everything to do with it.
I just like, yeah.
And I can assure you, we're going to have some strong opinions being put forward, Barbs?
Yeah.
So, and that's okay. Absolutely. It's absolutely okay. And then the week after that, which is the first week of July, we're going to have Barb talking about all the investigations that she's done at Napier Prison, one of the most haunted places in New Zealand, which you now can't get into. So tune in. And with that, we'll say good night.
Good night.
Wrong hand. Good night, folks.